You wake up, but you cannot move. Your eyes are open. You can see your bedroom. You can hear sounds, but your body will not respond. You try to sit up, nothing. You try to call out, your voice does not work. And then you see it. A figure standing in the corner, or sitting on your chest, or moving toward you. You know it is not real, but it feels real. More real than anything you have ever experienced. Your heart is racing. You are trapped inside a paralyzed body while something impossible approaches. This is sleep paralysis, and if you have experienced it, you are not alone. Millions of people around the world have woken up unable to move, often accompanied by terrifying hallucinations. I gave an artificial intelligence a task that sits at the intersection of neuroscience and nightmare. I fed it decades of sleep research, brain imaging studies, surveys of sleep paralysis experiences, and historical accounts from cultures that interpreted these events as demons, ghosts, or supernatural attacks. The answer reveals what is happening in your brain during these episodes and why evolution gave us a mechanism that can trap us between sleep and waking with hallucinations that feel absolutely real. Today, we will walk through what sleep paralysis is, why it happens, what you see and feel during an episode, and whether there is any danger beyond the terror itself. Stay with me. This is not just about understanding a phenomenon. It is about understanding how thin the line is between sleep and waking, between reality and hallucination. If you want analysis where AI breaks down experiences most people are afraid to talk about, subscribe to Mike AI Production now. This is where neuroscience meets the phenomena that terrify us. To understand sleep paralysis, we need to understand the mechanics of sleep itself. Sleep is not a single state. It is a cycle of distinct stages that your brain moves through multiple times each night. There are 4 stages. Stage 1 and 2 are light sleep. Stage 3 is deep sleep. And then there is REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, where most vivid dreaming occurs. During REM sleep, your brain is highly active. Brain scans show patterns of activity similar to waking consciousness, but your body is paralyzed. This is called REM atonia. The mechanism exists to prevent you from acting out your dreams. Without it, you would physically move while dreaming. You would punch, kick, run, potentially injure yourself or anyone sleeping near you. The paralysis is controlled by neurons in the brainstem. These neurons release neurotransmitters that inhibit motor neurons in the spinal cord. The signal from your brain to move your muscles is blocked. Your muscles receive no commands. They remain still. This happens every night during REM sleep. It is normal. It is necessary. Sleep paralysis occurs when this mechanism activates or fails to deactivate at the wrong time. You wake up, your consciousness returns, but the paralysis does not release. Or sometimes, the paralysis activates before you have fully fallen asleep. Either way, you are conscious and aware, but you cannot move. The AI analyzed thousands of reports of sleep paralysis and found consistent patterns. The experience typically lasts between a few seconds and a few minutes, though to the person experiencing it, it can feel much longer. Time perception is distorted when you are terrified and unable to escape. Most people can move their eyes. Some can move their fingers or toes slightly. But large muscle movements like sitting up or turning your head are impossible. Breathing is usually automatic, controlled by the autonomic nervous system, so you do not suffocate. But the sensation of pressure on your chest, which is common during sleep paralysis, can make it feel like you cannot breathe, adding to the panic. And then there are the hallucinations. This is where sleep paralysis crosses from a mere inconvenience into genuine terror. The AI found that about 75% of people who experience sleep paralysis also experience hallucinations. These hallucinations fall into 3 main categories, and the consistency across cultures and time periods is striking. The first category is the intruder, a presence in the room. This is the most common and most disturbing type of hallucination. People report seeing a figure, often shadowy or indistinct, standing near the bed, in a corner, or in the doorway. The figure is malevolent. You can feel the hostility radiating from it even if you cannot see its face clearly. It is watching you, studying you. Sometimes it moves closer, approaching the bed with slow, deliberate movements. The descriptions are remarkably consistent despite coming from people who have never heard of sleep paralysis and who have no cultural framework for what they are experiencing. The figure is usually dark, sometimes described as a shadow person, sometimes as a hooded figure, sometimes as an indistinct humanoid shape. It is rarely detailed. The brain fills in enough information to create a sense of presence and threat, but not enough to make it fully realistic, which somehow makes it more terrifying. Some people report that the figure speaks. The words are often unintelligible, a low murmur or whisper that you cannot quite make out, but that fills you with dread. Others report that the figure makes sounds, breathing heavily, growling, or laughing in a way that makes your skin crawl. A few people report that the figure touches them, and this transitions into the second category of hallucination. The second type is the incubus, named after the medieval demon said to sit on sleepers. This is the sensation of a weight on your chest or abdomen, as if someone or something is sitting on you, pressing down, making it hard to breathe. This type of hallucination has been reported throughout history and across virtually every culture. The details vary, but the core experience is the same. In medieval Europe, people believed they were being attacked by demons, witches, or succubi. The old hag in Newfoundland folklore is described as an evil witch who sits on your chest and tries to suffocate you. In Turkish culture, it is called karabasan, the dark presser. In Thai culture, Fayam, the ghost that covers. In Egyptian culture, the jinn that sits on you. Every culture has interpreted this experience through its own belief system, but the physical sensation is identical. The pressure is not subtle. People describe it as crushing, like a heavy person sitting on their chest, making each breath difficult and labored. Sometimes the weight is accompanied by a visual hallucination of a figure sitting or crouching on you. Sometimes it is just the sensation with no corresponding visual, but the feeling of malevolence is almost always present. This is not a neutral weight. It feels intentional. It feels like an attack. The AI analyzed why this particular hallucination is so common. During REM sleep, breathing becomes irregular and shallow. The muscles that normally help with breathing, the intercostal muscles between the ribs, are partially paralyzed like all voluntary muscles. Breathing continues because the diaphragm is controlled differently, but it requires more effort. When you wake into sleep paralysis, you are suddenly conscious of this difficulty breathing. Your brain, in a state of hyperarousal and fear, interprets the sensation as an external pressure rather than an internal change in breathing mechanics. Add to this the fact that many people sleep with blankets or heavy covers, and the brain has a plausible explanation for the pressure. But instead of recognizing it as a blanket, the fearful, hallucinating mind constructs a malevolent entity. The weight becomes a demon, a ghost, an intruder. The third type of hallucination is vestibular motor, involving sensations of movement. These are the experiences where people feel like they are floating above their bed, being pulled out of their body, flying, falling, or spinning. The sensation is vivid and disorienting. Some people interpret these as out-of-body experiences or astral projection, spiritual phenomena where the soul leaves the body. But the AI found a neurological explanation. The vestibular system, which controls your sense of balance and spatial orientation, is in the inner ear. During REM sleep, This system can produce signals that create dream content involving movement. You dream of flying, running, falling. When you wake into sleep paralysis, these vestibular signals are still active. Your brain is receiving information suggesting movement, but your body is not moving. The disconnect creates the sensation that you are moving independently of your body, or that your body is moving in ways that feel impossible. People describe the sensation in different ways. Some say they feel like they are being lifted off the bed, rising toward the ceiling. Others feel like they are sinking through the mattress, falling through the bed into darkness. Some report spinning or rotating as if the room is tilting. A subset of people experience what feels like being dragged or pulled, as if an invisible force is trying to remove them from the bed. These experiences can be terrifying or, in rare cases, exhilarating. A few people report that the floating sensation is pleasant once they realize they are not in danger. But for most, the inability to control the movement combined with the paralysis creates intense fear. You are at the mercy of forces you cannot understand or resist. The AI also identified a fourth, less common category that some researchers add: bizarre or supernatural experiences. These go beyond the intruder, the pressure, or the floating. They involve encounters with entities that are more complex in detail. People report seeing aliens, demons with specific appearances, deceased relatives, or creatures from mythology. They report being examined, communicated with telepathically, or being shown visions of other places or times. These experiences overlap with reports of alien abduction, which has led some researchers to hypothesize that many alien abduction accounts are actually episodes of sleep paralysis, misinterpreted through the cultural lens of UFO beliefs. The paralysis, the sense of being examined or probed, the presence of non-human entities, the feeling of floating or being transported, all of these elements appear in both sleep paralysis and abduction narratives. The AI could not definitively prove this connection, but the statistical overlap is significant. People who report alien abductions often describe being woken in the night, unable to move, surrounded by beings who perform procedures on them. This is phenomenologically identical to sleep paralysis with hallucinations. The difference is the interpretation. Is it a neurological phenomenon or a genuine encounter? For the person experiencing it, the distinction can be irrelevant because the experience feels absolutely real. Why do these specific hallucinations occur? The AI found an explanation rooted in how the brain processes threats and constructs reality. During sleep paralysis, parts of your brain are awake while others are still in a dream state. Your visual cortex is active and processing real sensory input from your eyes. You can see the room. You can see the shadows and shapes that are actually there. But your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure deep in your brain that processes fear and threat detection, is also highly active, still operating in the paranoid mode typical of REM sleep. The amygdala during REM sleep is hypervigilant. This makes sense evolutionarily. Sleep is a vulnerable state. Our ancestors who slept lightly, who woke easily to threats, who interpreted ambiguous stimuli as potential dangers, were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. The brain during REM is primed to detect threats, even in the absence of actual threats. It is better to wake up at a false alarm than to sleep through a real predator. During sleep paralysis, this threat detection system is active while you are conscious. The combination creates a perfect storm. Your brain is scanning the environment for threats because the amygdala is in high alert mode. It interprets ambiguous shadows or shapes as potential dangers. The coat hanging in the corner becomes a figure. The play of light from a window becomes movement. Your brain is pattern matching, trying to find faces and forms in the visual noise, because recognizing threats quickly was a survival advantage. And because you are in a liminal state between waking and dreaming, The brain fills in details with hallucinated content. This is the same mechanism your brain uses every night to create dream content, but now it is overlaying those hallucinations onto your actual visual field. The shadow in the corner becomes not just a shadow, but a detailed figure with a presence, with intentions, with malevolence. The weight of your blanket becomes not just pressure, but a sentient entity pressing on your chest. This is not random. The AI noted that the hallucinations are almost always threatening, rarely neutral or positive. In thousands of reports analyzed, less than 5% describe the hallucinations as benign or pleasant. The vast majority are terrifying. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. If your brain is going to hallucinate during a vulnerable state, it is better to err on the side of caution, to assume the worst. Better to see a threat that is not there than to miss a real threat. The cost of a false positive is temporary fear. The cost of a false negative is death. The brain regions involved in this process have been mapped using fMRI and other imaging techniques. Studies of people experiencing sleep paralysis or in states designed to mimic it show heightened activity in the amygdala and in regions of the prefrontal cortex involved in threat assessment. There is also activity in the temporo-parietal junction, a region involved in distinguishing self from other and in creating a sense of spatial presence. This region may be responsible for the feeling that there is another entity in the room with you, the sense of a presence even when you cannot see anything. Interestingly, the anterior cingulate cortex, a region involved in integrating emotional and cognitive information, shows unusual activity during sleep paralysis. This region is trying to make sense of conflicting information. Your eyes are telling you that you are in your familiar bedroom, but your body is telling you that you are paralyzed, and your amygdala is telling you that you are in mortal danger. The anterior cingulate tries to reconcile these inputs and fails, which may contribute to the sense of unreality and confusion that accompanies the fear. The neurotransmitters involved are also well understood. During REM sleep, the brainstem releases glycine and GABA, inhibitory neurotransmitters that block signals from motor neurons to muscles. This is what creates the paralysis. At the same time, acetylcholine levels are high, which promotes REM sleep and dreaming. When you wake into sleep paralysis, the acetylcholine is still elevated, keeping you in a dreamlike state, while the glycine and GABA have not yet cleared, keeping you paralyzed. Adrenaline floods your system as the amygdala activates your fight-or-flight response. But you cannot fight and you cannot flee because you are paralyzed. The adrenaline has nowhere to go. Your heart races. You breathe rapidly. Your muscles tense or try to, but the paralysis holds. This physiological arousal feeds back into the fear, creating a loop. The more afraid you are, the more adrenaline is released. The more adrenaline, the more intense the physiological symptoms. The more intense the symptoms, the more convinced you are that you are in real danger. Breaking this loop is the key to ending an episode more quickly. If you can recognize what is happening, if you can tell yourself that it is sleep paralysis, that it is temporary, that you are not in danger, you can sometimes reduce the adrenaline response. Slowing your breathing helps. Focusing on small movements, like wiggling a toe or finger, gives you a sense of control and can help the paralysis release. But this requires a level of calm and rationality that is extraordinarily difficult to achieve when a shadow figure is approaching your bed. The cultural interpretation of sleep paralysis varies wildly, but the core experience is remarkably consistent across time and geography. This consistency suggests that sleep paralysis is a universal human phenomenon, something encoded in our neurology rather than learned from culture. But how we interpret it, how we explain it to ourselves and others, is shaped entirely by cultural context. In medieval Europe, people believed they were being attacked by demons or witches, entities sent by the devil to torment the faithful or to punish sinners. The Catholic Church recognized these attacks as real and offered prayers and rituals for protection. The term nightmare comes directly from this period. Mare was an Old English word for an evil spirit, a type of demon that sat on sleepers' chests and caused bad dreams and suffocation. The nightmare was not the dream, it was the creature causing the dream. Paintings from the medieval and Renaissance periods sometimes depict these entities. The most famous is Henry Fuseli's The Nightmare, painted in 1781, which shows a sleeping woman with a grotesque demon sitting on her chest and a horse's head emerging from the darkness behind her. The painting captures the essential elements of sleep paralysis: the paralyzed sleeper, the malevolent presence, the sense of oppression and terror. In Newfoundland, the old hag phenomenon was so common and so feared that it became part of the local folklore. People would take precautions before sleep, placing objects near the bed that were believed to ward off the hag. Some slept with a knife under the pillow, others recited prayers or incantations. The hag was described as a witch who came in the night, sat on your chest, and tried to steal your breath or your soul. The experience was so terrifying that some people developed a fear of sleep itself. In Japanese culture, the phenomenon is called kanashibari, which translates roughly to bound in metal. The term suggests complete immobility, as if the person is restrained by invisible metal bonds. Japanese folklore attributes the paralysis to vengeful spirits or to possession by malevolent entities. In modern Japan, despite widespread knowledge of the scientific explanation, many people still refer to the experience using the traditional term, and some still interpret particularly frightening episodes as supernatural. In Chinese culture, it is often described as being pressed by a ghost, with the ghost sitting on the chest or lying on top of the sleeper. The experience is sometimes attributed to spirits of the dead who are angry or restless, or to fox spirits, supernatural creatures in Chinese mythology that can possess or torment humans. Remedies include burning incense, placing talismans under the pillow, or consulting with spiritual practitioners to identify and appease the offending spirit. In Islamic cultures, sleep paralysis is sometimes attributed to jinn, supernatural beings made of smokeless fire that exist in a parallel dimension and can interact with humans. The jinn can be benign or malevolent, and those who cause sleep paralysis are typically considered the latter. Protective prayers from the Quran are recited before sleep to ward off jinn attacks. The experience of feeling a presence, seeing shadowy figures, and being unable to move fits well with traditional descriptions of jinn encounters. In Egyptian folklore, sleep paralysis is associated with a specific type of jinn called jinn al-Qarin, a personal spirit that is assigned to each person and can sometimes torment them during sleep. The remedies are similar: prayer, recitation of protective verses, and in some cases, seeking help from religious scholars or practitioners who specialize in dealing with jinn. Among the Hmong people, an ethnic group from Southeast Asia, there is a belief in a nocturnal pressing spirit called Dab Sog. This spirit is held responsible for sudden, unexpected nocturnal death syndrome, a condition where otherwise healthy young adults die in their sleep for no apparent medical reason. Whether Dab Sog is related to sleep paralysis is debated, but the symptoms people describe before these deaths, including waking up unable to breathe and feeling a presence, are consistent with sleep paralysis. The fear generated by repeated episodes might, in theory, contribute to fatal cardiac arrhythmias in vulnerable individuals, though this remains speculative. In parts of Africa, sleep paralysis is often attributed to witchcraft. The belief is that a witch or sorcerer is attacking you spiritually, either to harm you, to steal your life force, or to deliver a curse. The paralysis is seen as evidence of the attack. People may seek protection from traditional healers, who provide charms, perform rituals, or prescribe specific behaviors to ward off future attacks. In the Caribbean, particularly in Haitian voodoo, sleep paralysis can be interpreted as an encounter with spirits or as a symptom of spiritual imbalance. Remedies might include offerings to particular loa, the spirits venerated in voodoo, or rituals to strengthen spiritual protection. The paralysis and the sense of presence are seen as real spiritual phenomena, not hallucinations. In Native American traditions, sleep paralysis experiences are sometimes interpreted within the framework of spirit encounters or vision quests. The paralysis might be seen as a moment when the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds is thin, allowing contact with spirits or ancestors. The experience, while frightening, might also carry spiritual significance or messages that need to be interpreted by elders or spiritual leaders. The consistency of the core experience across all these cultures is striking. The paralysis, the fear, the sense of a malevolent presence, the pressure on the chest, these elements appear in every tradition. What changes is the explanation. Is it a demon, a ghost, a spirit, a witch, a jinn? The cultural framework provides an answer that makes sense within that worldview. But the neurology is the same. The brain mechanisms that create sleep paralysis do not vary by culture. Only the interpretation varies. This raises an interesting question. If modern science had not provided an explanation, how would we interpret sleep paralysis today? In secular Western culture, where supernatural explanations are less culturally dominant, people might instead interpret the experience as a sign of mental illness, a brain tumor, or some other medical pathology. The fear would shift from demons to disease, but the core experience would remain terrifying and poorly understood without the framework of neuroscience to explain it. What triggers sleep paralysis? The AI found several risk factors. Sleep deprivation is the strongest predictor. When you are severely sleep deprived, your brain's regulation of sleep stages becomes dysregulated. You can fall directly into REM sleep without passing through the lighter stages first, or you can wake up while still in REM, both of which increase the likelihood of sleep paralysis. Irregular sleep schedules also increase risk. Shift workers, people who frequently travel across time zones, students pulling all-nighters, anyone whose sleep schedule is chaotic is more likely to experience sleep paralysis. The brain's internal clock gets confused. The mechanisms that normally keep REM paralysis confined to REM sleep stop functioning properly. Sleeping in the supine position, on your back, is associated with higher rates of sleep paralysis. The AI could not determine a definitive mechanism, but one theory is that sleeping on your back makes breathing slightly more difficult, especially if you have mild sleep apnea. The difficulty breathing can partially wake you while you are still in REM, triggering the paralysis. Stress and anxiety are also linked. People going through traumatic events, major life changes, or periods of high stress report more frequent episodes. The mechanism here might be related to hyperarousal. Your brain is on high alert, more likely to wake you during the night, and if you wake during REM, you risk sleep paralysis. Certain substances increase risk. Alcohol disrupts normal sleep architecture. It suppresses REM sleep early in the night. Then you experience REM rebound later, with longer and more intense REM periods that increase the chance of waking during REM. Some medications, particularly those that affect neurotransmitters involved in sleep regulation, can also trigger episodes. And there appears to be a genetic component. The AI found studies showing that sleep paralysis runs in families. If your parents experienced it, you are more likely to experience it. This suggests that the mechanisms regulating REM atonia have some genetic variability. I asked the AI to construct a timeline of what happens in your brain during a typical episode. Here is what it found. Minute 0. You are in REM sleep. Your brain is active, dreaming. Your body is paralyzed by the normal REM atonia mechanism. Then something triggers a partial awakening. It might be a noise, a change in temperature, a full bladder, anything that would normally wake you. But instead of fully waking, you enter a hybrid state. Your cortex, responsible for conscious awareness, becomes active. But the brainstem mechanisms controlling muscle atonia do not deactivate. You are conscious, but you cannot move. In the first few seconds, there is confusion. You are not fully oriented. You might not immediately realize you are paralyzed, but then you try to move and nothing happens. Panic sets in rapidly. You try to call out. Your vocal cords are paralyzed. You cannot speak. You cannot scream. The panic intensifies. Your amygdala, already active during REM, goes into overdrive. It floods your system with adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. You are experiencing the physiological response to extreme danger, but you cannot fight and you cannot flee. You are trapped. Your brain, in this heightened state of fear, starts to construct explanations for what is happening. Why are you paralyzed? Why do you feel this pressure on your chest? The brain fills in the gaps with hallucinations. A shadow becomes a figure. The weight of the blanket becomes a malevolent presence. These are not random hallucinations. They are coherent, detailed, and terrifying because your brain is using the same machinery it uses to construct dreams, but you are partially awake, so the hallucinations overlay onto your real environment. For some people, the hallucinations include auditory elements, footsteps, whispers, breathing, growling. The sounds are vivid and appear to come from specific locations in the room. Your auditory cortex is processing both real sounds and hallucinated ones, and in your state of fear, you cannot distinguish which is which. For others, there are tactile hallucinations. The sensation of hands touching you, pulling you, holding you down. Sometimes people report feeling like they are being strangled or suffocated, even though their breathing is actually fine. The sensation is generated by the brain, not by any physical restriction, but it feels absolutely real. The episode continues. You struggle to move. Small movements sometimes work. You might be able to wiggle a finger or toe. Some people report that focusing on moving a single body part, like a finger, can eventually break the paralysis. The effort seems to help the brain fully transition out of the REM state. Others find that trying to relax and slow their breathing helps. The paradox is that panic makes it worse. The adrenaline and hyperventilation prolong the hybrid state. If you can calm yourself, recognize what is happening, remind yourself that it is temporary and not dangerous, the paralysis often ends more quickly. But this is incredibly difficult advice to follow when you are in the middle of an episode and a shadowy figure appears to be approaching your bed. Eventually, the paralysis breaks. The mechanism deactivates. You can move again. You sit up, gasping, your heart pounding. You turn on the light. The room is empty. The figure is gone. But the fear lingers. Your hands are shaking. You are drenched in sweat. The experience was so vivid, so real, that part of you still cannot fully believe it was just a hallucination. Some people experience sleep paralysis once and never again. Others have repeated episodes, sometimes multiple times per week. For those with frequent episodes, sleep paralysis can become a significant source of anxiety. They become afraid to go to sleep, knowing that they might wake up paralyzed and terrified. This fear can lead to insomnia, which worsens sleep deprivation, which increases the likelihood of more episodes. It is a vicious cycle. Is there any real danger from sleep paralysis beyond the fear itself? The AI examined medical literature and found that sleep paralysis is not physically harmful. You are not at risk of dying or suffering permanent injury from an episode. The paralysis is temporary, Breathing continues automatically, but the psychological impact can be significant, especially for people who do not understand what is happening and who interpret the experience as supernatural or as a sign of serious illness. There are documented cases of people developing post-traumatic stress symptoms from particularly intense episodes of sleep paralysis, especially when the hallucinations are violent or when the person believes they are under supernatural attack. The fear is real, and the brain does not always distinguish between a real threat and a hallucinated one when it comes to forming traumatic memories. Can sleep paralysis be treated or prevented? The AI found several strategies that reduce the frequency and severity of episodes. First, improve sleep hygiene. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Get enough sleep. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours. If you are chronically sleep deprived, you are setting yourself up for sleep paralysis. Second, avoid sleeping on your back if you are prone to episodes. Sleep on your side. This simple change reduces the incidence for many people. Third, manage stress and anxiety. This is easier said than done, but techniques like meditation, therapy, or stress reduction practices can help. If your life is chaotic and stressful, your sleep will be dysregulated and your risk of sleep paralysis increases. Fourth, avoid alcohol and drugs that disrupt sleep. If you notice a correlation between substance use and sleep paralysis episodes, that substance is likely a trigger. Fifth, if you have an underlying sleep disorder like sleep apnea or narcolepsy, get it treated. These conditions dramatically increase the risk of sleep paralysis. Treating the underlying disorder often resolves the sleep paralysis as well. And finally, education helps. Understanding what sleep paralysis is, knowing that it is not dangerous, that it is a well-documented neurological phenomenon and not a supernatural attack, can reduce the fear. If you wake up paralyzed and you recognize it for what it is, you are less likely to panic. And less panic means the episode is shorter and less traumatic. For people with severe, frequent episodes that do not respond to lifestyle changes, there are medical treatments. Antidepressants, particularly selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, can suppress REM sleep and reduce the frequency of episodes. This is not a cure, and it comes with side effects. But for people whose quality of life is significantly impacted, it can be an option. Let me give you 3 conclusions. Pick the one that resonates. Conclusion for the skeptic. Sleep paralysis is a neurological glitch. It is your brain waking up at the wrong moment before the paralysis has released. The hallucinations are your threat detection system misfiring, interpreting shadows and sensations as dangers. It is terrifying, but it is not supernatural. It is not a sign of mental illness. It is a well-understood phenomenon that happens to millions of people. Improve your sleep, manage your stress, and the odds are you will never experience it again. Conclusion for the curious. Sleep paralysis reveals how fragile our sense of reality is. The line between dreaming and waking is thinner than we realize. During an episode, you are experiencing a hybrid state where your brain is constructing hallucinations that overlay onto reality. This tells us something important about consciousness. What we perceive as reality is always a construction, a model the brain builds from sensory input and prior expectations. Sleep paralysis just makes that construction process visible. Conclusion for the experiencer. If you have experienced sleep paralysis, especially repeated episodes, you know how terrifying it is. No amount of scientific explanation fully captures the visceral fear of waking up paralyzed with a malevolent presence in the room. But understanding the mechanism can help. It is not a demon. It is not a ghost. It is your brain caught between sleep and waking, and it will end. The paralysis always breaks. You are not in danger. Focus on that. Breathe. And when it is over, Consider what might be triggering it and take steps to reduce your risk. As for me, I have experienced sleep paralysis multiple times. The first time I had no idea what was happening. I thought I was dying or losing my mind. The figure I saw was so real, so detailed, that even now, knowing it was a hallucination, part of me remembers it as if it were an actual person in the room. Subsequent episodes were less terrifying because I knew what they were, but the fear never fully goes away. Your rational mind knows it is not real. Your limbic system does not care. It screams danger regardless. If this video helped you understand sleep paralysis, if it made the experience less frightening or less isolating, that is the goal. These phenomena are part of being human. They are strange and unsettling, but they are not inexplicable. Subscribe to Mike AI Production for more investigations where AI meets the experiences that terrify us. Hit like if you want more content on the neuroscience of fear. And leave a comment. Tell me, have you experienced sleep paralysis? What did you see? I read every response. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.